Hey, you guys. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Run It Up Wednesday on the Get Money Show. I am so thrilled to talk to you guys about this. I'm just going to make sure I go live here on Instagram as well because I want to make sure everybody is able to see this. We're going to be talking today about how yes, you, okay, wherever you are, whomever you are, whatever your age, whatever your creed, whatever your color, whatever your religion, whatever, can build a seven-figure, literally a $1 million, have $1 million in the bank for your child or your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, whatever it is, by age 40. Now, this is going to be relevant regardless of, again, where you live, whatever you do with your life. And this is over and above whatever your child makes in their career. This is 100% passive. This is not spam. I'm not going to sell you a single thing. This is not a workshop where at the end I'm gonna be like, surprise, you got to pay $99 for this at the end. I'm not selling you nothing. I just want to teach you how to do this because guess what? The wealthy do this every day. And I made a very short video about this on my Facebook group, which is the Get Money crew on Facebook. I made a very short video about this, but I got so many messages after that. It was only like 15 minutes long. I got so many messages about this afterwards with people asking me to dive deeper into this and to show them the step-by-step on how to do it. Okay. And I'm just going to make sure I go live here on YouTube real quick. Let me know where you are watching from. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. Are you here in the United States? Are you here in Michigan where I am? Let me know who I'm talking to because I want to make sure that I'm addressing everybody. And I also want to make sure that I can see the comments, okay? This is going to be a hands-on tutorial on how to do this. Hey, Katrina Parker. She said, I don't even know how I got on this list, but I am here for it, honey. Yes. Katrina, welcome. I'm so glad to see you here as well. Let me know where you're watching from. Angela, my girl, is here from Tallahassee. What's up, Angela? This is going to teach you guys how to close the wealth gap in one generation. Okay. Now, if you have a baby in your life, this is perfect. If you don't have a baby, my son is 13, for example. Okay. This is relevant for that as well. This is also relevant for you, even if you don't have any children or grandchildren or nieces, nephews, godchildren, kids that you mentor in the neighborhood or whatever. Okay. Katrina is watching from St. Louis. The other Katrina is here as well. Welcome, both of you. Hey, Regina from Houston. Let's see. We got Chris watching from Wisconsin. Angela is here from Florida. I'm so pumped to see you here. So I'm just making sure I go live on YouTube. On Instagram. All right, let's get into it. And we're going to get started because I don't want to waste y'all time. We got a lot to cover in a short period of time. Okay. So hopefully you all are writing things down. And if you're not writing things down, that is okay because you are going to be able to watch this on replay when it is over. Okay. This will be safe for you. You can watch it on replay. Let's go. First things first, I want you to like this video. Do me a favor and like this video because what we are not doing is we are not gatekeeping. We are not gatekeeping. The 1% has gatekept long enough. If you are tired of feeling like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer and you don't have any way to move up the ranks without working your fingers to the bone or working harder, getting less for more work, I want you to go ahead and like this video. Because when you like this video, it allows YouTube to know this is one content that you like, which means people like you will like it as well. So go ahead and press the like button. It helps to spread the word, okay? Because it helps other people to know this is possible too. So don't gatekeep, press the like button for me. If you are not yet a subscriber of the Get Money Show, go ahead and click the subscribe button here because every week I'm posting content like this. I have been sharing how to get wealthy, the easy way to build passive income. If you are new and you're like, how the hell did I get on this list? Who is this girl, right? Go ahead and click the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications because I am so tired of these wealth gaps. I'm tired of the racial wealth gap. I'm tired of the gender wealth gap. I'm tired of the class wealth gap because it doesn't have to happen. And the only reason it is happening is because you don't know this information, right? You don't know it because guess what? They don't teach it in school. They don't want you to win. They want you to remain where you are. Because quite frankly, schools, if you know this to be true, give me a yes in the comments or say true in the comments if you know this to be true. Schools do not teach this information because why? Because guess what? Schools are designed to teach people how to be employees. And there's nothing wrong with being an employee. But guess what? If everyone has $1 million in the bank, if everyone has $2 million, $3 million in the bank, we have the economy will fall because no one's going to be working, right? People are going to be doing whatever they want to do because they have the FU money. And that means exactly what it sounds like, because they have the FU money to do what it is that they want to do with their lives. At that point, you're now working because you feel like it, not because you have to. And many of us are working because we have to, not because we want to, or we're working at places that we have to work, not because we want to work there. But if you've got $2, $3, $4 million in the bank, you're like, I don't need this. F you, I'm out if you're talking crazy to me. Or F you, I'm out of this bad relationship if you're talking to me like, if you're acting like you don't value me, you don't appreciate me, right? And that's what we want. And so the 1% has to remain in power. And so in order to do that, they have to maintain their level at the top. Because if 99% of the population cannot get to where they are, then they remain in power. They remain the ones that have the pull when it comes to political agendas, right? They can help to pay off the politicians to push forward what they want to happen. But if you have that money, if you have that same ability, how do they remain in power, right? So let's make sure that you have that same ability, or at the very least, let's make sure that our kids and our grandchildren do, okay? So people always talk about this. How do I... people, I hear all this rhetoric. How do we close the wealth gap? How do we close the wealth gap? Right. And, I think it's important for us to realize that it affects us individually. We think about it in terms of like groups. So we think about it in terms of like Black people versus everybody else, or women versus men, or what have you. But we need to think about it in terms of us, because if each and every one of us who are on this video right now, if we all do what I'm going to tell you to do, we can close that wealth gap in one generation. And beyond it being a wealth gap for the culture or for the population of women or whatever, right? We also now have that ability to set our children and our grandchildren up for true generational wealth. When I hear people talk about generational wealth, they're always talking about working harder. You don't have to work hard, boo-boo. You don't have to work hard. And here's how you're going to do it, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. If you are on Instagram and you're watching me, you might want to come over on YouTube, because this is where the real party is, over here. And secondly, I have the ability to show my screen. I cannot do that on Instagram. Okay. So just search for The Get Money Show on YouTube and you will see me over here. I'll be sharing my screen. I'll be showing all the math, all that sort of stuff. I can't do that on Instagram, but I can do it on YouTube. Okay. All right. All right. Hey, Dr. Nicole. Hey, rich friend. Hello, everybody. All right. Katrina says that's why she homeschools. She says she homeschools because they don't teach this stuff in school. They absolutely don't teach it in school. They do not. They will not. They never will. But we are responsible for knowing this stuff. And I'm going to tell you something. What I'm going to teach you today, it's all Googleable. It's all Googleable. But most of us don't know what to search for. And it's one of those things where like, I don't know what I don't know sort of thing, right? So it's like, you don't even know to look for these things because you don't even know that these things are available for you, right? So when it comes to having your kids to build $1 million portfolio with zero work by the time they are 40 or within 40 years, depending on how old they are, right? Like I said, my son's 13. In 40 years, he'll be 53, right? If your kid's a baby, by the time they're 40, they'll be 40. If your kid's 18, do the math, whatever, right? If you are 30, in 40 years, you'll be 70, right? So you can do this for yourself as well, okay? This is very, very simple. It's all because of compound interest and because of the average rate of return of the stock market. Now, you only need $1,000. You don't need a ton of money. You only need $1,000. And I know this sounds like such a scam, but I promise you it's not. I'm going to show you the math. Y'all minds are going to be blown, okay? Blown, honey. You only need $1,000 to do this. And if every single person who had a baby, and I said this in my Facebook group when I made this video a couple of days ago, if every single person who had a baby, let's say in the next year, if every single person who had a baby took $1,000, okay, and they put it into the stock market, and I'm gonna tell you why I'm recommending the stock market over a traditional bank, right? Put it into the stock market, your kid, and they put it into the right vehicle, which I'll tell you what that is in a minute. Your child would have $1 million plus by the time that they're 40. Now, the reason for this, again, is compound interest. And I think that we are not, they always say that youth is wasted on the young, right? If you ever heard that, let me know in the comments. Give me a 1 if you ever heard that youth is wasted on the young. And I don't think we really understand what that means until we're a little bit older. Because if I could go back to when I was 15 and start this process, I absolutely would have, right? But obviously I can't. Time is the only thing that we can't get back. We can get back money. We can work harder. We can work longer. We can work stronger. We cannot get back time no matter what we do. Time machines do not exist, unfortunately, at least so far. So we can't go back. And so because your children or your grandchildren or whomever it is are young, really young, they have compound interest on their side, right? Now, we also, as older folks, right? I don't think anybody on here is, in their teens, right? We can have compound interest on our side too, but we're going to have less years available simply because we're older. So the younger you start, the better. But when I say that, I don't want you to think that just because you're not 18 or 25 or even 30, that you can't do this too. Something is better than nothing. If you do nothing, you will have nothing in this amount of time. However, if you do something, you'll have way more than you would have had if you do nothing. Okay. So I feel like although youth is wasted on the young, I think we put way too much emphasis on youth, especially here in America, because it makes people who are not extremely young feel like, oh, well, it's no point in me even trying. Right. It makes it feel like, well, if I can't have, $10 million by the time I'm 60, then what's the point? Right? Which is a completely false narrative to have. Now, let me show you some math here. I'm going to use a calculator called Nerd Wallet, and I'm going to post the link here in the comments on YouTube. Okay. So you guys can do this yourself. You can play with the same calculator as well. All right. This is the calculator here. It's called Nerd Wallet, and it's the compound interest calculator. Okay. There's the link. I just posted on the screen. It's also in the comments as well. And I'm just going to highlight it so it stays there. All right. All right. So let's share my screen. And let me make everything 0 so y'all can see the math as it happens. By the way, as I'm sharing this, I want y'all to know that I am only 50 watch hours away from 3,000 watch hours. That means that you guys will have watched my YouTube channel for 3,000 hours within the past 8 months, which is crazy, right? I'm only 50 hours away. My goal is to hit 3,000 by next week. So if you watch this if 50 people watch this whole video, that means I will have 50 watch hours, which means I'll hit 3,000. So do me a favor and stay to the end, please, so I can hit my goal. I appreciate you all so much, especially if this content is valuable to you. All right. All right. So let's share the screen. Let's get into it. Thank you so much for saying that, Katrina. Yes. She says, you are not too old to change your life or the next generations to come lives. So accurate. So accurate. So accurate. So accurate. And Memory Camp says, yes, everything I learned from Gwen, I'll be turning around and teaching my child at home. I love this for you. I love it for you. I love it for you. All right, let's do this. Share my screen. Share screen. Okay. All right, and let me switch this over real quick so you guys can see it. Okay, you guys can see the screen? Let me know. Give me a yes or a comment if you can see my screen. Where'd the comments go? Okay, great. I can see. Okay, you guys can see it. Perfect. So this is the Nerd Wallet calculator. All right, and I meant for this to say 0, but let's just get started. I'm gonna put in here $1 just to move this total balance over. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do, remember I told you only need $1,000 for this. Remember I told you that? You need $1,000. You don't even need 1,000, right? But we're going to say 1,000 because I feel like $1,000 is a reasonable amount for you all to be able to come up with, right? It's not a ton of money, but it's not like peanuts either, right? If you think you can come up with $1,000, put 1,000 in the comments. Just put 1,000. If you think you can come up with 1,000, not necessarily 1,000 extra dollars, just $1,000. Do you pay $1,000 a month in something across all your bills? Like, I'm pretty sure all of us spend more than $1,000 in a month. To put 1,000 if you have $1,000 at your disposal in some capacity. Okay, Valika says 1,000. Memory Kit says 1,000. Regis says 1,000 as well. Okay. All right, cool. So if you think you can come up with $1,000, it's going to put you in a really, really great space because you're going to see how this math works out. All right. So let's say your initial deposit into the stock market for your child, yourself, your grandchild, whomever, okay, is $1,000. Vicky says 1,000. So does Charlene, Joyce, Jasmine, Angela, Tracy, Vicky, Rena. All these people say they have available. They can find $1,000. Okay. Marilyn says 1,000. All right. So you got $1,000. And we are going to put that $1,000 into the stock market. Okay. So that's your initial deposit. So when you open this brokerage account for your kid or yourself, right? Or whomever it is in your life. And let me know in the comments, let me know who it is that you would be saving, who you would be wanting to make this money for. Would you be wanting to make it for yourself, for your son, your daughter, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew, your god kid, whatever. Let me know in the comments who you would be wanting to do this for. Okay. And let's say in every month, you just contributed $100. Now, if you got $1,000, I'm going to assume that you can come up with $100. Because like we spend $100 on what? Nonsense, right? Like I spend more than $100 just eating out with my friends every month. Way more than that, right? I spend $100 on, for sure, my son is 13 and he's growing like a weed. He's 6 feet tall and he's 13 years old, right? He's growing like, I promise you, every hour. In clothes in a month, for him, I probably spend over $100, right? And he wears a size 13 shoe and he's 13. Just last month, he was in a 12. I'm spending more than $100. And he plays basketball. So you got to have basketball shoes and everyday shoes. I spend more than $100 on shoes for him, right? So we spend $100 a month on stuff, right? Memory Camp says $100 on Halloween decorations. Yes, you're going to use those for 30 days, right? We spend $100 on that. Some of us spend $100 a month on coffee in Starbucks or whatever, right? Some of us spend $100 on bottled water, you know, if you're a bottled water snob. Katrina says one time dining out with her family instead of cooking a meal at home, boom, $100. Absolutely, $100 plus, right? So we all can find, if we got $1,000, we got $100, right? Do not let anybody ever tell you that they don't have money for something. People find money for what they want to find money for, because I promise you, people will, if you have a business, okay, for those of you who are business owners, people will tell you that your stuff is too high. But then when Beyonce comes to town, they got $500 available for floor seats. Where did it come from? People have money for what they want to find money for. Okay. I promise you that. All right. So you got $100. You're going to put $100 a month toward this account. Okay. So we entered the brokerage with $1,000 and we're going to contribute $100 per month. That's why I have this on monthly, not annually. Okay. So see, this is on monthly. If you're using the calculator yourself, you can follow what I'm doing right now and do the same thing yourself. Now, let's say your kid is a baby or however old they are, and we're going to grow this for 40 years. Okay. For 40 years. I'm over 40. I don't know if any of you here are over 40, but this could have been done for me had my parents known this when I was a baby, right? Okay. So 40 years of growth. And down here where it says estimated rate of return, we're going to change that to what an estimated rate of return would be for the stock market. Now, on average, the stock market gets between 8 and 10% growth annually. This is important to know because when I told you guys that you will never get this return in a bank, that is for a very specific reason. And I'm actually going to make a whole video. It's going to be a pre-recorded video on inflation, because most of us don't understand inflation. We just know that inflation means that, you know, the price of milk goes up or the price of eggs go up, right? But what we don't understand is how it affects our pockets. Inflation is so important to understand, because here's the thing. If you put your money in a traditional savings account, and I'm going to do the math here for you, right? Let's say instead of the stock market, you put this money in a traditional savings account. A traditional savings account is going to get you on average 0.45%. And that's when that's when interest rates are high. However, the Federal Reserve, which is the big bank, or the major governing bank of the United States, when they cut interest rates, which they just did, and they're going to do it again at the end of 2025. Sidebar, if you're looking to buy a house or buy a car, do not buy one right now, because interest rates are going to go down at the end of 2025. If you buy right now, you're going to just need to refinance at the end of 2025, because interest rates are going to be significantly lower. If I were you, I would suggest waiting until the end of 2025 if you're going to make a big purchase, because interest rates are going to be less. Okay. So that's the positive about interest rates going down. And I'm not just saying this out of speculation. The Federal Reserve has actually announced this. Okay. So they're going to reduce interest rates. They've already reduced it in September of this year. They're going to reduce it again at the end of 2025. So wait to buy a house, wait to buy a car if you can, wait to make any big purchase if you can. Okay. Back to the point. Interest rates being lowered is great when you're making a big purchase. However, if you are putting your money into a bank, it is not great, because your interest rate also goes down. When interest rate goes down in one place, it goes down everywhere. So interest rates before the cuts was 0.45%. Okay. So let's put this in here. So 0.45%. Let's just say 0.5. Okay. So 0.45% annually is compound interest, right? So it's compounded annually. In 40 years, your child, you, your grandchildren, whomever you guys mentioned. Let me see who you guys mentioned in the comments. Rena said her grandchild. Reeg says her daughter, Andrea. Patrice says herself. Charlene says her son. Tanisha says her grandchild. Jasmine says both her sons and herself, right? Chris says her child and herself. Marilyn says herself, so forth and so on, right? A lot of you guys are saving for your kids, your grandkids, or yourself, right? In 40 years, if you did this and put your money in a traditional bank, you would have $49,000. Let's just say 50, if we round up, $50,000 at the end of 40 years in a traditional bank. Now, that's with the interest rates being what they were prior to September. The average interest rate now is 0.4% because they got cut. So let's put it down. Now you've got 49,000, a little less, right? This is what you'd be looking at. So I'm gonna write this number down. Where's my whiteboard? I'm gonna write this number down because I want y'all to remember it, okay? So I'm gonna write down, this is a traditional savings account, okay? Traditional. Oh, wait, that's the wrong kind of. Y'all didn't use a Sharpie. I didn't mean to use a Sharpie. I meant to use a whiteboard marker. Okay, traditional savings account. You would have, what we say, $49,401, okay? You guys see that? That's how much you would have in 40 years. Let's say you put this money into a high yield savings account instead. Now, a high yield savings account is going to earn you about before the cut, it was earning about 5.5%, 5.25%. But now since the cut, the first cut that the Federal Reserve made, we're earning more closer to actually more like 4.6%, right? So let's change this to 4.6%. Now, for the same amount of time and the same money that you put in, by putting your money in moving your money from a traditional account to a high yield savings account, you earn almost $100,000 more again in 40 years. That's a huge difference, right? But I'm going to show you the difference if you put it in the stock market. All right. So let's use a different color. If you do a high yield savings account, which we're going to call it HYSA. If you've been here for any length of time, I've done a ton of videos on high yield savings accounts and why you need to have your money there. Your emergency savings money there, not necessarily your most of your money, but your emergency savings should be there. So we're going to put $140,000, 356. Okay. So this is how much you would have. This is the difference. Okay. Between your high yield and your traditional. Okay. Now, let's say we put our money in the stock market, and I'm going to come back to the inflation conversation in just a minute. Let's say we put our money in the stock market. In the stock market, the average rate of return is between 8 and 10%. You will never get those returns in a bank. People are scared of the stock market, and I'll tap into that in a minute. Okay. Tap into my thoughts into that in a minute. But people are scared of the stock market because they're like, oh my gosh, what if I lose all my money? If you've ever felt like oh my God, if you've ever felt fear of the stock market because you're like, what's going to happen if the stock market crashes? Put crash in the comments. Put crash in the comments. If you've ever felt like, oh my God, I'm so scared of that because what if my money is all lost? That is a fair thought because that is what they designed for us to think, right? But I want you to be honest with me and let me know. Just put crash in the comments if you've ever felt that way. Okay. Now, if we're earning between 8 and 10% in the stock market and we change this average rate of return to 10, we've got $600,000 for the same amount of time for the same amount of money. Now that's the average rate of return of the stock market. So we're going to make that in orange and we're going to put $600,000. So we're going to say stock markets. Now we're at $600,000. And again, remember, we didn't put any extra money in there. We still put just $1,000 and we put $100 with it every single month. And you can do this again, passively, zero effort, because you can do what's called automatic contribution, right? So in the stock market, it's actually called dollar cost averaging, but that's another conversation for another day. The bottom line is you can basically automatically transfer this $100 to your traditional savings account or your high yield savings account or your stock market account, your brokerage account. Either way, you do an automatic contribution. You don't have to think about it, right? So when I say it's zero effort, it's literally zero effort. Okay. Shakira says, my dad lost a significant portion of his retirement money and ultimately our inheritance when the stock market crashed. And so it's a legitimate fear. Sure. 100%. I'm going to address that in a minute, Shakira, because it is a legitimate fear. But I'm going to tell you what possibly he could have done or you guys could have done in order to not lose that money, even though the stock market did crash. Okay. So just hold that thought. So Katrina has that fear. Tracy, Vicky, Jasmine, Tanisha. It's a legitimate fear, right? We'll talk about it in a minute. All right. Now, that is the average rate of return. But we're not here to be average. We are not here to be average. I'm not here to be average. I don't wake up every day looking to be average. I don't know about you. I'm looking to be extraordinary. Okay. So what I want to show you is another way for you to earn even more money in the stock market. Okay. So I already showed you how you can go from $49,000 in a traditional low interest savings account to $600,000. We're talking over $550,000 more, but you didn't put in any extra money and you didn't spend any extra time. So if this is your child, your grandchild, or you for 40 years, they will have $600,000. But if we put it into a stock that's earning over and above what the stock market on average gets, because we're not trying to be average, right? We're trying to outperform the stock market. We are going to put it into an ETF. And an ETF, what I love about ETFs is that ETFs, for those of you who haven't been following me and don't know about these, ETFs are basically a basket of stocks. Okay, so essentially they're a basket of stocks and it allows you to have instant diversification. What that means is that if you've ever heard, like, you should diversify your portfolios, you should not put all your eggs in one basket. Of course, if you are carrying a basket of eggs and that egg basket drops, all your eggs are going to crack. However, if you have multiple baskets of eggs and you drop one, you've got 3 or 4 or 5 other baskets of good to use eggs, right? So if one stock drops and all of your money is in, let's say, Nike, for example, and Nike falls and Nike crashes, and you go to take your money out, you've lost money. However, if you invest your money into an ETF, which is an exchange traded fund, a basket of stocks that has hundreds of stocks inside of it, and Nike falls, you've got 499 others, possibly, if it's a 500 stock ETF, that ideally will do well, right? So you haven't put all your eggs in one basket. Right, exactly, Katrina. Spread your eggs out, right? And so there are several ETFs that outperform the stock market. Now, I'm going to show you another screen. Can you guys, let me see. I'm going to stop sharing this screen. I'm going to share a different screen. Actually, let me just do this all together. All right, so hopefully this works. Okay. Oh no, that's not what I want. Let me change that. That's not what I wanted. Wait a minute. Present, share screen, and we're just gonna do this. Okay, so this is one of my favorite ETFs. This one's called VOO. That's the stock ticker symbol. Okay, so VOO is a ETF, again, a basket of stocks that tracks the S&P 500. You've probably heard the term S&P 500. You may not know what it is. The S&P 500 is the 500 largest companies in America. Okay. So as you can imagine, this one's going to outperform the average stock market because it's the 500 largest companies. Okay. So the 500 largest companies, they have the most money. They are outperforming the rest of the stock market because in the rest of the stock market, you also have the losers that are losing money. Like right now, Neo, which is not the singer, but and not the guy from The Matrix, but it is basically the Japanese competitor of Tesla, right? They were killing it in 2020. They've been losing money for the past couple of years. Like they're down to like less than $5 a share, where they were up over 20 before, right? So that's a losing stock. So the whole stock market has, 2,000 plus stocks in it, 2,000 plus companies. These are the top 500, whereas the whole stock market has 1,500 other companies that aren't doing as well as these 500. So this is a great ETF to put your money into. And as you can see, if you look at the performance of this particular ETF, you can see that I'm going to go over to the screen. In the past year, it got 36% returns, right? Over the past 10 years, it's gotten 13% returns. And on average, since this ETF was created in 2010, which is in most of our lifetimes, it has gotten almost 15% returns. That's 5% more than the stock market over the course of this time. If you had just put it in this year, though, you would have got 36%, right? So let's go back to the compound interest calculator. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share the compound interest calculator again. All right, so now that we know that we could put our money into something like VOO to get over and above that, on the low end, if we got, I think 1 year it was 11%, we go up from $600,000 to an extra almost $200,000 with just 1% more. 1% more interest, right? If we were to get the average, which is that pretty much almost 14%, now we're at $2 million that your child or you will have in 40 years. And the reason I want to use this number specifically is because if you remember over on VOO, I'm sorry, no. Actually, it's gotten 14.70. Let me not cut it short. So 14.7. Okay. So now we're at over $2 million. This is the average that this particular ETF has gotten in the entire time, right? So this is not like, oh, it only did this in the first 3 years. Oh, it only did this in the first 10 years. This is the average over the whole time, right? So at any point, if you put your money into this particular ETF, you will be getting on average about 14%. If you just put your money in this year, let's just for kicks and giggles, let's do this one. The 36% for this year. Like that's $1 billion, right? But it doesn't get that much every single year. So we're not even going to use that number. We're going to use that 14.7% because that's the average it's getting. Tell me this isn't insane. For $1,000 that you would put into the stock market for yourself, your child, your grandchild, your niece, nephew, cousin, whatever, right? If you put that into the stock market, $1,000, and you only added $100 a month, you just did it automatically. You didn't even think about it. For 40 years, they will have $2.3 million compared to, let me get my little marker out, compared to $49,000 for the same amount of time. Let's see if we put it into VOO. This is also in the stock market. I'm going to say it's an ETF. We're talking about 2.3 million. I'm going to stop sharing for a second because I want you all to see this. You see it? Can you see my screen? Hopefully you can see it pretty well, right? So a traditional savings account, we got almost $50,000. You put that same money into a high yield savings account, you're at $140,000. So you gained $100,000. You put that money into the average of a stock market, we're getting $600,000, but we put it into an ETF where we instantly diversify with 500 stocks to our name. We now have $2.3 million. And this is how the rich stay wealthy, right? Because they understand that their money can do the work for them. We have been taught and brainwashed into thinking that we have to work super hard and bust our ass and work our fingers to the bone all the time in order to make even a 6 figures a year, right? Now, keep in mind, this is over and above any work that your child or you would do. So whatever money you make at your regular job, in your career, at your company that you own or whatever, this is completely separate from that. And that's if you're only adding $100. Let me know in the comments if this is not incredible. If this is incredible to you, like this is fascinating to me. If this is fascinating and incredible to you, just say incredible in the comments. Because to me, it's like, this is so easy. And we've been taught that it should be hard, and it doesn't have to be, right? Again, if you can come up with $1,000, you can come up with 500. I mean, you can come up with 100 to spend a month, right? And then of course, once your kid is of age, they can contribute they can put the $100 in, right? Once they start working, it's on them at that point, right? But we teach them when they're young to prioritize this sort of thing, because we are taught to prioritize consumerism. We're taught to prioritize the new Jordans. We're taught to prioritize the Starbucks. We're taught to prioritize the concerts and the trips. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have all that, because believe me, I want to have my cake and eat it too. I believe in a and life. I do not believe in an or life. I want to have money in the bank and I want to go to Turks and Caicos. I'm not trying to choose between one or the other, right? I want to eat at home sometimes, and I want to eat out with my friends, and I want to go to fancy dinners, and I want to go to awesome dates and all that sort of stuff. I want both. I don't want one or the other. Okay. And so I'm not one to tell you, stop drinking your daily latte. That's nonsense. Right. But what if you could do this for your kid? And we talk about closing the wealth gap. This is how you do it. It's not about working hella hard all the time. It's not about busting your tail for 60 years, right? I had this conversation with my son, and I'm going to post the conversation in my group on Facebook because it was so like him and I having this conversation. He's 13, right? Him opening his eyes to what was possible was incredible to me. Just the revelations that he had at 13. So I'm gonna post the link to my Facebook group in the comments. I want all of you to join it. It's completely free. You just got to click the link It'll take you to Facebook. You request to join. I'll let you in as long as you're not a spammer or a troll or whatever. But this kind of stuff is in that group. Okay. And Beverly, I will add the investment calculator for you again in the comments so that you have it. Okay. Thank you for asking. Yes, Dr. Nicole, we are doing this and that. We are not like, oh, well, I really want to save money, so I can't have my latte every day. Like, miss me with that. Like, I want it all. And whoever told us that we can't have it all, they had a scarcity mindset. Because my abundant mindset says I can have whatever I want. Right? Now, I might have to make some sacrifices to get there, but I can have whatever I want. Right? Here's the thing. Most of us feel like we deserve things that we didn't work for, right? Like we feel like we should deserve, all this money in the world, but when we are taught certain things, we don't apply them. So I'm really hoping that you all apply these things that I'm teaching you, because it sounds way too easy, but it is. Why do you think you have all these trust fund babies? Why do you think that you have all these people who it just seems like they making money hand over fist, but they're not even working. They're on a yacht all the time. They're hanging out. They're kicking it because when they were younger, their parents knew what I am teaching you. Right? So when you see these 30-year-olds, these 35, 40-year-olds, and they're just living life and enjoying it, they're like, that could be us. That could be your kid. Right? Like, we are at the best time to live in terms of career choice. And I had a conversation. My sister asked me to teach a money class to her students when I was back home visiting last week. And I got in there and I was telling these teenagers between 15 and 18 years old. And I was telling them, now is the best time that you can literally do whatever you want and make money at it. When I was a kid, maybe some of you all too, because some of y'all are a little bit older than me. Some of you all are about my age. Some of you might be a little bit younger, right? But when I was younger, I remember there was this common saying. It was like, well, you can't major in basket weaving in college, right? You need to major you need to take a major that is going to make you some money, right? But literally nowadays, you can make money being a basket weaver like that. Like, you can make money doing anything because of social media, because of the internet. Kid you not. I was at the Essence Music Festival some years ago. And there was this man, he was a poet. Don't nobody make money doing poetry unless you're like Shel Silverstein or Edgar Allan Poe or somebody. I think he even died poor, right? I was at Essence Music Festival and there was this man and he had a traditional typewriter, like an old school typewriter. And he had been paid by Essence, by the festival, right? Not by individual people like me. The festival had paid him $700,000 to sit there for 3 days with a traditional typewriter and have people come up to him, tell them their life story, and him to concoct a poem in the moment, print it out, and give it to him. 700 grand. He ain't got to work for the rest of the year. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3, right? He got paid for his talent. That was not an option. That was not an option when I was a kid. Like, you weren't getting paid to write no poetry. The poetry was a hobby, right? But nowadays you can literally make money doing anything if you apply it. So what if this guy that I'm talking about, he was young too. What if he was like, I want to be a poet, and my parents, my aunt, my grandmother, whatever, put this money in the stock market for me when I was a kid. And it has grown, and I'm 40 now, or I'm 39 or whatever, however old he was, right? And now I can live my life pursuing my passion, finding ways to monetize that instead of feeling like that's a side hustle and I've got to like work at some job I don't like. I can find ways to monetize my talent because I'm already good over here. And because my brain, I'm speaking as him now, right? Because my brain is open and available to do what I love to do instead of what I have to do, I can maximize the monetization of my love, which is poetry. So he can make 700 grand writing poetry for 3 days at a festival because he already got $1 million+ in the bank. He ain't even thinking about it. He's not worrying about how he's going to pay his bills. He's not worrying about how he's going to cover the rent. He's not worrying about any of those things because his parents or grandparents set him up. What if we could do that for our children? Right? Sean says, can this be put in my child's name? She's 16, or in my name? Sean, you can create what's called a custodial brokerage account. You can do that with Fidelity. Unfortunately, you can't do it with things like Robinhood, but with Fidelity, you can. Okay. And I don't get paid for saying that. Fidelity doesn't pay me anything, but Fidelity allows you to have a custodial brokerage account for your kid. Okay. So just go to Fidelity. You can Google custodial brokerage account and they'll tell you exactly how to set it up. My son is 13. He has one as well. Katrina says, what about taxes and fees? When can you access this money, or do you access? Once you do access it, what happens to your balance then? Great question. So Katrina, let's say that your child decided to leave it in the bank, leave it in there until they were, what's the age? I think it's 59 and a half. Let me Google it real quick. Let's see. Roth IRA age. I just want to make sure I give you the right age, and we can put in the calculator. Okay, so it's 59 and a half. That's what I thought. Okay, so let's share the calculator one more time. Let's share the calculator so I can address this question for you. Share screen. Share screen. Okay. Let me move this over. Okay. So if your child left that money in there till they were 59 and a half, let's just say 59. Oh, it only let me go up to 50. Well, I'm gonna put 50 because the calculator will only let me go to 50. Your kid would have $9 million if they just waited 10 more years. And that's because of compound interest. I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds crazy, but the math is mathing. Okay. 10 more years, because you got to remember, they're getting compound interest. And there is compounding on the larger balances, right? So every year after it reaches a certain amount, they're getting exponentially more money. So they'll go from $2 million at 40. If they just leave it in there for 10 more years, they'll have $9 million. Okay. Now, what happens to that's a lot of money. What's going to happen with that money? Now, let's say your child, now this calculator will not let me go past 50 years. It only lets me go up to 50. But let's say they left it in there for the full 59 and a half, let's say 60 years. Okay. If they were, basically starting from a baby, they will have well over $15 million at that age. Okay. If you were to put this money into a Roth IRA for them, right? Because you could put the money into a Roth IRA and then just contribute to that Roth IRA. They can pull it out before age 59 and a half. But if they do, they will be met with 10% taxes. Right? So it's in their best interest to leave it in until they are 59 and a half. Once they reach 59 and a half, when they pull that money out, there will be no taxes on it. It is tax free. So your kid will pull that money out. There will be no fees. There will be no taxes if they just wait until they are 59 and a half. If you put in a Roth IRA. Now, if you put that money into a traditional brokerage and it's not a Roth IRA or a tax advantage account like a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, then they will have to pay taxes. They only pay taxes when they pull the money out. So they pull the money out and they will have to pay capital gains taxes like everybody else would on that money. But if they leave it in there until they're 59 and a half, there are zero taxes, which is something else that the rich know that most of us don't. Right? So your kid could retire if they started at zero. Remember, this calculator is only going. I'll post the calculator again. I posted it a couple times, but I'll post it again for you guys. Because you guys are asking. But I want you guys to have this so you can play around with this yourself. Okay. I'm posting it and I'm going to highlight it again. Okay. Now, this calculator only goes up to 50 years. But again, this is at $9.2 million in 50 years. Add on additional 10 years, we're going to be at over $15 million. Okay. So Katrina, when you do this for your kid and they leave it in there, and this, remember, they're contributing $100 a month every month during this time. And I want to show you something that's really, really incredible about this, in addition to them having $9 million. But they're going to have over $15 million. Leave it in there to 59 and a half. There will be no taxes. No taxes on that. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. What I want to draw to your attention is how much you will have, you or your kid will have contributed to this versus how much money they will have made. Okay. So the amount of money that you would have contributed, look at this, is $61,000 over the course of 50 years. You will only have contributed 61 bands, but they will have $9.2 million. Come on, somebody. Come on, somebody. It blows my mind. It blows my mind to think and realize this is how the rich people get richer. That's insane, right? Isn't it insane, Memory Camp? It's insane. Absolutely insane. And again, this is with doing no work. This is no work. This is not, hey, son, hey, daughter, hey, grandkid, you got to work twice as hard to get half as much. Hey, daughter, you're going to have to work. You're going to have to be relegated to making half as much as your male counterpart in the workforce, even though you do the same or better work than them. If you want to talk about closing the wealth gap, this is how it's done. It's easy. This is it. So all this talk and stuff about like, hey, you all need to work really, really hard to get all this money. Like, no, you don't. To close the wealth gap, all everybody needs to do is take $1,000 and put it into the stock market. Even if they only did the average rate of return, which is 10 on the high end, 10%, they still got $600,000. But if they at 40, but if they can do this, if they can put it in a stock that's getting the average like this of VOO, which is 14.7%, we're at $9 million in 50 years. The wealth gap is closed. Ain't no more wealth gap. Wealth gap is done. But the 1% don't want you to know it. They don't want you to know this. They don't want you to realize that money, earning money, making money work for you is not hard. I always say that making passive income is very, very, very simple. It's very simple. And we got Nasette on here who's a financial planner. She will tell you the same. Making money work for you is very simple. The problem is that it requires 3 things that humans don't naturally have. And if you can get those things, you will win. Those things are patience, discipline, and consistency. The great thing is that technology takes care of 2 of them. Technology will take care of the consistency and the discipline, right? Because remember, I said, you're so welcome, Katrina, because like I said, I'm sorry, Dr. SP, I see your question. I'm going to answer it in just a second, but it threw me off for a second. So I got to finish this thought and I'll come back to you. Dang, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Y'all, I was on my whole soapbox. Chris says, isn't it valuable to have money in the stocks to save for major life events like college funds for kids, home purchases? Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, Chris. Chris says, isn't it valuable to have money in the stocks to save for major life events like college funds, kids, home purchases, new car purchases? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying that you have to leave all your money into a Roth IRA. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in Katrina's case, if she were to do that for her child, because she asked the question, right? If she would do that for her child and they're starting from zero, right? Remember, this money is over and above any money that they would make on their own, right? This over and above any money that they would make on their own. That money can sit there and grow past 59 and a half, and they can pull it out and be tax free, and they will have $9 million if you do what I told you to do right now, right? Now, for those of us who are not teenagers and those of us who are not kids, right? Yes, it is very advantageous for us to have money in both our Roth IRA, in our 401k as well, and in the stock market, just for things like you asked, Chris, for college funds for kids, home purchases, and new car purchases, because you're going to get a higher rate of return than if you leave that money in the bank. And I love how you are thinking, because most people don't think like that, Chris. Most people are like, well, I'll just put my money that I'm saving for my house purchase or for college in a 529 plan, or I'll put it into a regular savings account. They're not thinking like, oh, let me put that money into the stock market, let it gain a little bit over the course, let it gain more than a little bit over the course of, a couple years. Then I'll have more money at my disposal. At least half of that will probably be passive, right? So you're thinking really, really great. Now, I think your question really is, well, what happens? are there taxes on those? I think that's really what you're asking, because of course the Roth IRA question eliminates the taxes if you wait until 59 and a half. So yes, if you put your money in a regular brokerage account that is not a tax advantaged retirement account, you will have to pay taxes on it, but you're also going to have way more money, right? So it's like, you're going to have taxes, but, and I haven't done this class yet, there are ways for you to not pay taxes too. Just like the 1%. Like, I mean, whether you like him or not, like Donald Trump, $75 in taxes or whatever he paid a couple years ago, right? Like, I want to know how to do that, right? Like, I hate that he could do that and I couldn't at the time because I didn't know, right? But now I know, right? The 1%, they want you to make less money and pay more taxes. They make more money and pay less taxes not because they are crooks, not because, and some of them are, right? But not because they are generally crooks, not because they are generally bad people, but because the tax code, and this is not the topic for today, y'all. I'm not about to get into this today, but I'm gonna give you a high level conversation. The tax code is not written in the favor of employees. The tax code is written specifically for investors, business owners, and entrepreneurs. That's who it's written for. So if you are one of those three or more than one of those three, you are going to benefit from all the loopholes that the tax code has. But what do most people do? Most people complain and say, well, how come such and such politician or such and such rich person, Jeff Bezos, pays less taxes than I do, and I make $50,000 and he makes $40 billion? Why is that? Right? Because they're the 1%. And remember what I told you earlier when we started, the 1% don't want you to win. The 1% wants you to work harder and pay more tax, work harder, make less money and pay more taxes. Because why? If you are constantly not making more money, if you're constantly losing more money from paying more taxes than them, they remain in power. They then have the ability to control politics. They have the ability to pay off politicians, to pay off things and pay for things that benefit their agenda, whatever their agenda is. If you and I don't have that money, we don't have that control. So if 99% of the population pays more taxes, they're paying more money to the government, but they don't have the money to influence change, right? The 1% do. So if you can stop paying as much taxes, then you are in the category where you're winning, right? So I'll do a whole different conversation on tax avoidance. There's a difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance. We want to avoid taxes, not evade taxes. We should pay for I believe that we should pay what we owe. This is in the Bible. You should pay what you owe. But I don't want to give the government a tip, right? I want to pay what I owe, but I'm not interested. I don't think the government is doing a good enough job for me to give them a tip, right? I don't know about you, but I'm not going to give you extra money that I don't have to give you. But you got to know they call it loopholes, which sounds like scheming. It's not loopholes. It's literally the tax code. It's literally just the tax code. And it's written for investors, real estate investors, or investors in general, entrepreneurs, and business owners. Okay. And the thing is, you actually don't have to be any of those to benefit from some of these quote unquote loopholes, but to maximize, you do, right? You do. And the reason that the government has written the tax code in the favor of these people is not because they just feel like it. That's not why. The reason that and I think it's important for you to know the reasons why behind things, right? The government has written the tax code in this way because they're going to give an advantage to whoever does their job for them, right? So if I'm an entrepreneur, which I am, and a business owner, I am going to create jobs. That means that the government has less work to do because they have less people now that they have to pay unemployment to and put on government assistance programs because I have provided a job to them, right? So I'm doing some of the work that the government does, which is why I get an advantage being a business owner, or you get an advantage being a business owner because of that, right? If you are a real estate investor, you are providing housing, right? That means that the government has less work to do in terms of finding or providing housing for people, government assistance housing, right? That is why you are advantaged as a real estate investor because tax advantaged because you are doing some of the work for the government. And so it's important that we understand the why behind why things are, because then we can get out of our feelings. We can stop being emotional about things and we can be logical and say, oh, that actually makes sense. Let me figure out how I can be one of them. Right. And so that's why it is. And so I don't think very many people know that. I would venture to say less than 1% people really know that, that's why it's like that. So Chris, hopefully I answered your question. Yes, you're going to have taxes if you put it in a traditional brokerage account and pull the money out, but you can benefit from tax loopholes, just like the rich and the 1% do, so that you actually pay less or no taxes. Okay. Let's see. But thank you for asking that question, because that actually gave me the segue into that tax conversation that I think is really, really important. I thought I saw another question. Dr. Nicole says, this is how you close the wealth gap. You reprioritize where you're putting your money. Exactly. You reprioritize where you're putting your money. And here's the thing. If you can start to pay yourself first, like we all have been taught to pay our bills first. No, you are your most important bill. Your child is your most important bill. You should be paying you or your child first. So whatever money you get in, take a percentage of that. Decide what the percentage is. For some people, it's 20%. For some people, it's 10. For some people, it's 5. For some people, it's 40. Whatever that percentage is, you pay yourself first. And then whatever is left over from that, that's what you pay with your bills. Because at the end of your life, or at the end of your time to retire, no electric company, no vacation rental company is going to come to you and say, oh, you know what, Katrina, you did such a good job paying your bills on time. We're going to give you some money for retirement. They don't care. You're going to be on your own. And unlike college, there are no, there's no loans for retirement. There's no grants for retirement. Whatever you got is whatever you got. So pay yourself first. Take that money out. If you can do this at your job, or if you have your own business and you pay yourself, you can do this as well. In your like payroll provider or whatever, you can set a certain amount of money to go into a different account. So let's say you want it to be 20% of your check, hypothetically. You can take that 20% and automatically have that transferred to your, like, say, high yield savings account. So it's just sitting there, or even your brokerage account to go into your stock market account. And the rest will go into your bank account. Because you know how it is, like you see the money and then you have to part with it. It feels kind of hard. But if all you got is 80% of your check versus 20, and the other 20 is already over in the other account, then it doesn't feel as difficult to save for yourself. But you gotta prioritize you. You have to prioritize you, because no one else is going to do it. No one else. And now I want to address the question that somebody asked earlier. It was 2 questions I wanted to make sure I answered. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, Patience says, what's the average rate of return for VOO? Okay, so Patience, I showed that, but I'm gonna show it again because you may not have been here when I showed it originally. Let me share my screen with you so you can see it. Because when I say 14.7%, it sounds insane, because we know that we can't get that type of return in a bank, right? But when I show you that this particular ETF has gotten almost 15% returns since its inception in 2010, this is very real numbers. Okay. And again, in this past year, it's got 36%, which is crazy. Remember, the average rate of return for the stock market is between 8 and 10%. So for it to have gotten 3.6 times more than that is crazy in the past year, right? But on average, during the whole time that this has been in existence, you can pretty much bet on it's getting 14.7%. And the reason why, again, that I say that VOO, or any ETF really, that I'm not gonna say any, but most ETFs that track the S&P 500 are highly to your advantage, is because these are the 500 largest companies in America. Excuse me, the 500 largest companies in America. So because they have so much money, they're going to outpace everybody else, because there's only 500 of them, whereas over 2,000 companies are on the stock market. So you've got 1,500 other companies that are not performing as well as these. These are the best of the best of the best. This is the elite, because we do not wake up every day to be average. We wake up every day to have our money work hella hard for us, so that we don't have to work hella hard for it, right? And so I've said this before and I'll say it again. For those of you who don't know me, you'll hear me say this multiple times. You want your money to be like Nick Cannon. You want your money to be out there spreading its seed, multiplying the world for you. Okay. Nick Cannon said he wants to populate the world. We want our money to populate in our accounts. Okay. So think of your money like little Nick Cannons. Every dollar should be working for you. This is what the rich do. They make sure that every dollar that they have is working harder for them than they are working for it. Again, this is why you see these kids, I'm going to say kids, these young people, 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s, they are living the life on their yacht, on their island, on such and such vacation, gaming every day, whatever it is that they do, right? They are not working hard for their money. They are working a little bit, but they ain't working hard because their money's working harder for them than they are working for it. That is the goal. And you could never work hard enough to earn $9 million in 50 years. Never. Never to earn it like passively. You could never work that hard. When I say your money should be working harder for you than you work for it, that's what I'm talking about. Because your money is compounding every single year, working its tail off for you. It should be literally your employee, right? The beautiful thing about your money is that it doesn't take days off. It doesn't even take holidays. It doesn't take sick time. It don't require no PTO, none of that, right? It's the best kind of employee you can have, but it can't work for you if you don't set it up to work in the vehicles that it needs to be in order to do the work for you. If you just have it in a traditional savings account, it's going to do some work, but it's only going to give you $49,000 in 40 years. That same money is going to get you $2 million in 40 years. The same money for the same amount of time. And if you leave it in there for 10 more years, you'll get $9 million. Right? So that's really important. So, all right, let's go to the next question that I saw. Katrina, I answered your question about the fees and the taxes. Somebody else asked a question. I want to make sure I got it. Katrina said, my personal risk tolerance is low. And so I do the same concept with a different vehicle used for savings, not investing. So it's a bit different, but it keeps up with or surpasses inflation. Yes. So I was talking about inflation a little bit. And I'm going to answer Shakira's question in just a minute, or her comment. So a little bit ago, I was talking about inflation. Now, inflation, and I did a whole video on this. So if you missed it, you may want to go back and look at it. Inflation, it rises about, between 3 and 5%, right? If your money is in a traditional savings account earning less than 1%, you're not even keeping up with inflation, right? So if your money earns less than 1%, but inflation is 3%, right? You're not even outpacing inflation. You're losing money. So even though, let's say in a bank account, you may have $10,000. I'm just using this as a round number. If you have $10,000 in a savings account, a traditional savings account, and it's earning less than 1%, right? But inflation is 3%, even though your bank account will show $10,000, right? You actually have lost the value. Your money has lost the value. So whatever your money that was worth $10,000 at one point is now only worth $9,700, right? So you've lost like 3% because your money is inflation's outpacing your money. So if you feel like the price of eggs keeps going up, the price of life keeps going up, right? And you can't afford it. It's not because you don't have the money in the bank, but it's because the value of your money is less than what it was prior to the inflation rate increasing. So having your money in a traditional savings account is not only making you not have as much money, but it's actually losing you value in your money, which is why if you're going to have an emergency account, which you should, at least 3 to 6 months, ideally 12 months of living expenses, that needs to go into a high yield savings account. Because if your high yield savings account is earning you 5%, or let's say even 4%, but inflation is 3%, at least you're outpacing inflation. So your money is not losing the value and you actually gained a little bit more value on your money. Does that make sense? This is not a conversation about inflation, but I wanted to address that as to why when we talk about the stock market and why the rich get richer and it feels like the poor get poorer, it's because if someone has a savings account, which 82% of people who put their money First of all, 77% of people who make money don't even have a savings account. That's the first thing. After that, 82% of those people have their money in a traditional savings account. So that's why you hear, by and large, people saying, oh my gosh, the price of eggs is so high, the price of milk is so high, all this stuff is so high. But you don't hear the rich people complaining because they're not earning less than 1%. Their money's in the stock market. They're earning 10%, 15%, depending on the year, they may earn 20%, right? They're far outpacing inflation, so they don't feel the effects of inflation like the regular middle class and poor people do. But the upper class, and when I say upper class, there's an upper class and then there's the 1%. The upper class feel it too, because a lot of them don't even know it. But the 1%, they're not feeling those effects because they know that they will always outpace inflation dramatically. Their money is not losing value. And as inflation rises, their money is rising too. Whereas most people, when inflation rises, their money drops in value. Okay. Okay. So Shakira said, my dad lost a significant portion of his retirement money and ultimately our inheritance when the stock market crashed. So it's a legitimate fear. 100%. But Shakira and everybody else listening, I want you to remember this. Please, 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 please remember this. When you only lose money in the stock market, when you take the money out. Until then, it's literally just numbers on a screen. So Shakira, I don't know when your dad passed away, and I'm so sorry for your loss. And I don't know when you guys took the inheritance out, right? But the thing is, the stock market has always risen. So for those of you who said crash earlier, like you were afraid of the stock market crashing, which again is a legitimate fear, but it's a fear that they have incited upon us because they don't want you to know that if you don't take your money out, you haven't actually lost any money. Also, if you've gained money and you don't take any money out, you also haven't really gained any money. The only time you benefit or not benefit, the only time that you really win or lose money or gain money is really when you take that money out. Until then, it's literally just numbers on a screen. And here's what you have to remember. Yes, the stock market has gone down for sure. The stock market has definitely gone down. We all know about the Great Depression. We all know about 2008 around that time. And like last year's been kind of crazy too, right? But by and large, over time, the stock market has always gone up. So if the stock market goes down, what do they do on TV? Jim Cramer is freaking out. He's having a panic attack. Everybody on CNBC and CNN and on social media is like, oh my God, the stock market's down. They don't have that same energy when the stock market's up though, right? But when it's down, they're like, oh my God, it's down, it's down, it's down, right? They're freaking out. If you leave your money in there, it will go back up. It has never not gone back up. Even when it crashed in the 20s, it went back up eventually. So those people who, I know back then they were saying people were jumping out of buildings because they lost all their money, but they didn't realize if they just left their money in the stock market, it would have risen again. It always rises again. So part of the 1% wanting us to feel like, not wanting us to win is them saying, well, hey, if the stock market crashes, you lost all your money. Be scared of the stock market. Be afraid. Be very afraid, right? Like, go ahead and put your money in a traditional savings account because it's safe there. It's FDIC insured. It's safe there. And if you lose all your money, you're going to get $250 back, $250,000 back. Yes, that is true, which is why your emergency savings account should be in a high yield savings account so you can access it quickly if you want to. However, right? Again, the stock market has always risen. So Shakira, I'm sorry to hear that you guys lost some of your inheritance or maybe all of it. But if you had left it in there, remember, I said earning money is very easy, but it requires patience, discipline, and consistency, right? So if your dad put his money in the stock market, it sounds like he was doing the discipline thing, sounds like he was doing the consistency thing. But maybe you all didn't know this, right? But if you all had left it in there, it may have taken some more time to rise back up, right? But it would have eventually risen back up. It always has. It has never not risen over time. Now, it may not have risen within a year. It may not have risen within 6 months, may not have risen within 2 years, but it would have risen eventually, right? And if you had just left it in there, it would have gone back up. And you all would have that. Now, I don't know, if you need the money right away, that's a different story. I totally get that. But if you can leave it in which you should try your best to leave it in as long as you can, patience is the key. And so that is how they kind of like get us with this whole stock market thing. They want us to feel apprehensive and scared and afraid and be very afraid and all that sort of stuff of the stock market. But it has always, always, always risen. And it is by design that the 1%, they just leave their money in there because they know it's going to rise. They don't look at Jim Cramer. They don't look at social media. They don't look at all that sort of stuff when the stock market crashes. In fact, when the stock market crashes, stocks are on sale. When Amazon Prime, when it's Amazon Prime Day, what do we all do? We go clamoring on Amazon Prime. And we're like, oh, let me buy as much as I can. But when the stock market's down, we freak out. Instead of seeing this as like, oh my God, everything's on sale. Let me go buy some more NVIDIA. Let me go buy some more VOO. Let me go buy some more whatever, because all the stocks are on sale. They're literally on sale, right? And then when it rises back up, because they say to buy low, sell high, right? So if you buy low, when the stock market crashes, that's when you get everything at a cheaper price. But again, we are taught consumerism. We're not taught financial stability. We're not taught financial independence. We're not taught these sorts of things, right? We're not taught those things. So that's how you could have kept your inheritance, Shakira. And for anybody listening, again, the stock market will always rise. It always has. It's never stayed down. But they want us to be scared because fear keeps people paralyzed, right? If you're scared of it, then you will not partake in it, right? I don't watch scary movies by myself because they scare me. I will watch them with someone, but I'm not partaking in that because I'm scared of them on my own. Although I know it's a movie. It's a movie. It can't hurt me, right? Nobody's going to come through the TV. Jason's not going to come chop my head off. It's a movie, right? I know that. But I'm not going to participate in it because I'm scared of it. We don't participate in things that we're afraid of. So if you're afraid of the stock market crashing and they continuously push this rhetoric onto you that, oh my gosh, the stock market could fall and what if you lose all your money? Not telling you that, oh, yes, you could lose it on paper, but if you just wait and let it go back up and then take it out, when it goes back up, you actually haven't lost anything. They don't tell you that part. They don't tell you that part. Katrina says, I would love to have a conversation on how the wealthy use guaranteed cash value whole life insurance to store and build generational wealth. Katrina, oh my goodness. So Katrina, I don't know if you're still here, but if you are, or for anyone listening, I have a group called My Rich Friends, and My Rich Friends is my membership group for My Rich Friends. For those of us who are looking to get rich, become wealthy, build generational wealth, weekly masterclasses, and topics just like this. So actually next Tuesday, we are having a whole entire masterclass on insurance, including cash value whole life insurance, including term, whole life, IULs, all the things, right? So Katrina, if you would like to join that, you should join us in My Rich Friends. I'll post a link below. But that topic is something that we are going to cover literally next week. So you have perfect timing. I'm going to post a link here in case you want to check it out. My Rich Friends. All right. Shakira says, I understand your point. My dad passed in 2014. I'm so sorry to hear that. My mom passed in 2021. So I understand that losing a parent, how that feels. He lost hundreds of thousands. Yikes. There wasn't enough time for him to recoup it. That was my point. Yeah. I understand. I don't know if you and your family could have left it in there yourselves instead of because if your dad passed away, Shakira, in 2014, and he had named you guys as beneficiaries, which I'm assuming he did since you said this was your inheritance, then you all could have possibly have left it in the stock market and then let it run back up. Again, I don't know how soon you needed that money though, right? So if you needed that money immediately, then it may not have had time to run back up. But if you had left it in there, and depending on how much was left in there, it could have possibly gotten to the point where it was before. But again, I don't know the full scope of the situation, so I'm just kind of speaking very high level here. Be happy to have a conversation with you offline if you'd like to kind of discuss offline. But I'm really sorry to hear that happened to you. Let's see. Jackie says, think how much money you would have if you increase the contribution every year. Right? Ooh, Jackie, you want to play a game? You want to play a math game and see how much money you would have? Let's see. Jackie also says, I started my 19-year-old in IRA last year with an expectation for her to increase her contribution every year. Yes. Yes. Dr. SP says, so you're talking about getting a brokerage account that buys into the S&P 500 to get that VOO interest rate. Okay, so Dr. SP, I've seen a couple questions that you have, and I want to address all of them. So the interest rate is not guaranteed. There's no guaranteed interest rate on the stock market, right? It's never a guaranteed interest rate. But we can look at historical data, and the best predictor of the future is history, right? The best predictor of what will happen in the future is what has happened in the past, right? Just like a person, right? If you meet somebody and they lie all the time in the past, it's probably a good indicator they're going to be a liar in the future, right? If you meet somebody and they've got a heart of gold, they're a giver, they're a philanthropist, they like try to make sure everybody's good. If they're like that in the past, they're probably going to be like that in the future, right? Same thing with the stock market. So generally speaking, the predictor, that's why we look at the 5-year and the 10-year returns, and also the returns over the course of the entire time that that particular stock or ETF has been in existence. So I'll share my screen again to show that, so you can see it. So again, the best predictor of future performance is past performance. So we can look at this particular one and we can see that the 1 year is fun to look at, but it's only 1 year, right? I'd like to look at the 5-year and the 10-year. So the 5-year, over the last 5 years, so this is from 2019 to now, at the time I'm making this video, this particular stock or ETF has gotten almost 16% returns. Over the past 10 years, right, averaging it out, because we had in the past 10 years, we had COVID, we had some more stuff happen, right? So it's a little bit less, it's 13.33%. But over the time of the past 14 years, since this stock or ETF has been in existence, it's gotten almost 15% returns, right? So when we look at that, we can kind of predict what it's going to do. These are pretty consistent numbers showing us that over the past 5, 10, and 14 years, this particular ETF has gotten over and above the average of the stock market, which is between 8 and 10%. Even if we look at all of this time, we can't use the last 3 months. It's not really enough time. But year to date, 1 year, 11, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and since inception, it has always gotten over 10% returns annually, right? So this is a pretty good indicator that this particular ETF is going to continue to do that. Okay. So that's how you kind of use historical data to make a decision. So I just want to be clear. It is not guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed. Just like your interest rate at your traditional savings account or your high yield savings account is not guaranteed either, because the Federal Reserve can and will cut interest rates or raise interest rates depending on what inflation is doing, right? So like I just mentioned earlier, the inflation rate the interest rates have been cut as of September of this year, and they're going to be cut again next year towards November or December per the Federal Reserve. So, even, those of us who have high yield savings accounts, we were probably getting like 5.25% 2 months ago. And now we're getting like maybe 5, maybe 4.8, maybe 4.6% because the interest rates are not guaranteed. So no, the interest rates are not guaranteed, but they're definitely a lot higher than you can get just putting your money under a mattress or putting your money in the bank. Okay. One more thing I want to impart on you guys before we go is that I want you to think about this. When it comes to the stock market, I'm constantly telling this to those of you who are in my rich friends, and those of you who watch me here on the Get Money Show, and those of you who are in my free Facebook group on Facebook. Okay. And I'll drop the links to all of those before we go, so you guys can join all the things. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. If this was valuable to you, if this was eye-opening to you, if you're like, oh my freaking goodness, I could have $2 million in 40 years. Like, that sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not. Those of us who are 40 plus will tell you, like, time flies. I was just 25 2 days ago. I promise you I was, right? And so time flies. So that time will move. Time is going to pass anyway. That's important to know. Time is going to pass anyway. So you can either maximize that time for yourself and for your children, or you can just let time pass and do nothing. But either way, the time is going to pass. Time's going to pass regardless. Um, Dr. SP says, I get that, but when you showed the calculator, was that for just a brokerage account? Or was that buying into that ETF? That was buying into that particular ETF. Yes, that was that particular ETF. You could use that same calculator to calculate any stock or bond. Even bonds don't really get that much return, or any ETF. So if you saw an ETF that got you 10% as opposed to 14%, you would just change the number to 10%. If you saw one that got you 20% as opposed to 14%, then you put in 20. Right? Yeah. Okay, awesome. You're welcome. And I think it was Jackie. So Jackie, let's do this math real quick, and then I'm gonna make my final point, and then we'll get out of here. Okay. Let me share my screen. We're gonna go back to the interest calculator because we're gonna do some fun math to see what you would have or your child would have should you decide to increase the amount of money instead of just putting $100, right? So if you still start with that, let's change these numbers back. All right. Actually, no, let's leave them alone. So we know that let's do 40 years. Actually, let's do 30. Okay, so in 30 years, which is a smaller number, right? In 30 years, you or your child would have $585,000. That's in 30 years, not 40 or 50, okay? 30 years. So by the time they're 30, if they're a baby, they'll have that much. My son is 13, so in 30 years, he'll be 43. He will have this much money if I or him put in $1,000 to begin with and added $100 a month. But if we added, let's say we added $200 a month, we literally double it. So we go from 500,000, was like 585, to over $1 million just by adding an extra $100 per month. And it's important to know we would have only contributed $73,000 during that time, but we would have made $1 million in interest for a total balance of $1.1 million. Do any of you earn interest right now like that? Let me know. Because one of the most millionaires, whether they're business owners or not, right? Most millionaires have 7 streams of income. 7 streams of income. And one of them is interest. Did you know that? But you're like, well, how does the average person earn interest? How does that work? How do I earn interest? This is how you earn interest. You literally earn $1 million in interest. Now, I want you to think about this too. When you're paying a credit card bill, right? You're paying a credit card bill and they're charging you, let's say 14.7% interest, which is actually pretty low for a credit card. The average credit card rate is over 20%, right? So in this amount of time, you would pay a ton of money in interest. I want you to think about this because you could either be paying them or you could be paying you. Which one is going to get you further? I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your bills. What I'm saying is that you need to pay that stuff off so that you have the money available to pay yourself, right? So that's at 30. Let's see how much that person would have at 40. So in 10 more years, by adding an extra $100 to that contribution, they will have $4 million. And if they were able to leave it in there for 50 years, bruh, unfathomable. So just by adding, okay, let me put this into perspective for you guys. So if you were to start, keep in mind, you're still starting with $1,000. You have not started with anything extra. It's still $1,000. Okay. Because the initial deposit isn't as important as the contribution amount, right? So you're adding $100 a month to the $1,000. You're getting that 14.7% return on that particular ETF. That's just one ETF. And you might say, well, what? I will want to diversify my money. But guess what? You already diversified it because this particular ETF has 500 stocks and is always going to have the 500 top companies. This particular ETF changes often because some companies fall off, some companies come up, right? So 20 years ago, Tesla wasn't around. So Tesla wasn't in the S&P 500, but it is now, right? So it's always going to be the top 500 companies. So you almost can never lose because it's always the top companies, the top performing companies. You are always going to win on an ETF that tracks the S&P 500 because it's always going to be the best of the best of the best of the best. Because we don't wake up every day to be average. We wake up every day to be winners, right? So if you put $100 a month in there, you will have your kid will have $9 million. But if you just were able to add an extra 100, that would shoot up to $17 million by the time they were 50, if you start when they were a baby. Now, of course, if we're going to put this into a Roth IRA, they're hopefully going to leave that in there for 59 and a half years. So by the time they retire, this calculator will not let me go past 50 years. But it will be over and above. They're going to have over $25 million if they left it in there for 9.5 more years. And they would have done nothing except put $200 a month into the account. So Jackie, you said you started this for your 19-year-old. She's 19 now. If she waited 50 years, she'll be 69. She could still very well be here and alive with us. If you did this for her, she'll have around $17 million when she's 69. 69 is young. My dad is 83 and he looks like he's about 55. Gets around, got all his cognitive stuff, drives, goes to the club. He's 83, right? Perfect health. Very possible that your child could be 69 with $17 million. My son is 13. In 50 years, he'll be 63. Very possible he could have $17 million. Right? So just think about these possibilities. They would have done no work. No work. I don't want to hear anybody else talking about closing the wealth gap. Because if you want to close the wealth gap, this is all you have to do. It's all you got to do. The wealth gap is instantly closed in one generation if we all did this. Even if just half of us did this, all the wealth gaps are done. We got all the FU money we need. If you are picking up what I'm putting down, please write FU money in the comments because I can't be the only one who's fascinated by this. I think about this stuff all day. This is so exciting to me. Just the possibilities of not even the possibilities, the reality of what this can be. So Patience says, what platform do you go over how to open? Oh, which platform, period, do you go over how to open a brokerage account? Yes, I have, Patience. You should join this page. If you haven't already, click subscribe because there are videos on how to do that. Also, you should join My Rich Friends, which is the link that I posted for Katrina. I'll post it here again for you because that information is in there as well. I will also be doing another Fix My Money challenge. That will be coming up soon. So those of you who took the Fix My Money challenge, you already know all about it. But those of you who have not, it's a 5-day challenge. We take you from debt payoff all the way up to investing in the stock market and building a 7-figure net worth in 5 days. Right? That takes place. That's going to take place soon. So I'll post the links for all of those in just a minute, Patience. But I have gone over how to open up a brokerage account. But the short of it is basically you figure out a brokerage account. Some of them are Robinhood, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, E-Trade's another one, Charles Schwab. There's tons of them. I would not advise that you put your money into a brokerage account that is not whose primary business is not brokering stocks. So like Cash App. That's not their primary business. Their primary business is basically to transfer money from one person to another. And the reason why I don't suggest that is because they tend to not have all the stocks and ETFs that you want to buy. So if there's one that's available and you want to buy it, they may not have it. Whereas a company whose primary business is stock trading, they're going to have everything. So you can take your pick. I'm actually going to be coming out with a stock market basics course. If that would be helpful to you, I was thinking about creating that and I was working on it today. Let me know in the comments if a stock market basics course will be helpful to you, like video course that teaches you like from start to implementation, really how to read charts, how to invest, what type of brokerages you should look at, with the pros and cons of each brokerage, all those sorts of things. Let me know if that will be helpful to you. Just put yes in the comments if you feel like that course would be to your advantage, because I'm thinking about creating that and hopefully being able to offer it to you guys by the end of this year. Excuse me, because the stock market is actually really, really easy and simple, but they've made it really complicated and confusing and overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be. But again, all that's by design. They want you to be confused, because if you're confused, you don't make a decision, and you make a decision not to move. If you are fearful, if you are confused, you therefore become fearful of something because you don't understand it. And if you don't understand it, then you're not going to take part in it. Like we talked about that earlier, right? And so that's by design. It's not a secret that no, I'm sorry, it's not coincidental that you are confused, right? It's not coincidental that you are apprehensive. Like that's what you're supposed to be, because they don't want you to have $17 million in 50 years, right? They don't want you to understand that, hey, this is really freaking easy. Okay. Jasmine says, I was able to buy 1,000 each of VOO for both my boys this morning. They're 1 and 4. I love it. So you bought $1,000. I'm assuming you meant $1,000 worth, not 1,000 shares, Jasmine, because that would be a whole lot of money. But $1,000 of VOO for both of her boys. Just look at this. Jasmine has invested $1,000 for both of her kids, age 1 and age 4. In 50 years, they will be 51 and 54. Jasmine, if you just contribute $100 a month to each of their accounts, if you can contribute $200, even better. But if you contribute $100 to each of their accounts, they will be young men with $9 million. Kudos to you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, because knowledge is not power. I always say that. Applied knowledge is power. If you do not apply the knowledge, then it does you no good. How many of us know we should be doing certain things, right? How many of us know we should go to therapy, but don't? How many of us know that we should probably work on our exercise? How many of us know that we should probably start to, eat better, but we don't? We all know we should do things, but if you don't apply that knowledge, it makes you no difference. So I'm really proud of you for that, Jasmine. One point that I wanted to make that I said I was going to make earlier, I want you to think about this. When it comes to the stock market, we all know that cars are going to depreciate. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. We all know that cars are going to depreciate. Every single one of us, right? We know that when you drive it off the lot, it's not even worth as much as you paid for it just a couple of hours ago, right? We all know this. We are taught by society and in schools, right? Here's how you apply for a car. Here's how you. My son was taught how to get a car loan in school, but he was not taught how to invest in the stock market. Isn't it crazy? So we all know that cars will depreciate in value, but we are not taught to be afraid of that. We are not taught to be afraid of something that we know is going to lose money. We know it's going to lose money. By the time we get tired of the car, we go to sell it back, it's not going to be worth as much as it was when we bought it. We know this. But we are taught to not be afraid of that. We're taught to run toward that. We're taught to run toward the car loan. Buy a fancy car, get yourself a Benz, a Beamer, whatever it is, Range Rover, whatever it is, so you can floss. You can look good and people can think that you have more money than you do. We're taught to do that by schools, by society, by social media, by our peers, right? We're taught all that. Something we know is going to lose money, but we're not taught but we are not afraid. I'm sorry. We are not afraid to do that, but we are afraid of something that by and large has always gone up. We're taught to be apprehensive and scared of something that is always made money over time, which is the stock market. Make it make sense, America, right? We know it's going to lose money and we are happy to shell out this money. We are happy to get a car loan. I remember my nephew, he got a car loan once, and the car, he was really young. He just started life. So he was 18 and he got a car loan. And the car interest rate was 25%. And I was like, why would you sign up for a loan at 25% interest? That's insane. He was like, well, I don't have any credit, so they basically told me this is the best I could get. And he happily signed that because he could get a car. Right? This is no shade to him. He didn't know. Right? But he happily signed that, knowing he's paying 25% interest. He didn't have that car anymore, by the way. He's older now. He's like 22 now. But we are not taught to not be afraid of the stock market, which, as I just showed you guys with this calculator that I posted a few times, you would have $9 million in 50 years. Almost over $500,000 in 30 years. And in 40 years, you have $2 million. But we're taught to be afraid of that, be scared of that. Why? You think this is a coincidence? It's not a coincidence. It's on purpose. It's on purpose that you're taught to run toward these high-ass interest loans. Because why? Because you're paying out more money, which means you have less money, which means you're going to pay more in taxes because you don't have as much money and you don't know the tax code. And therefore, now you don't have the money to incite change that you want for your agendas. And you don't have the money to have FU money and not have to take someone's bullshit who's treating you bad at work or treating you bad in your relationship. You have to stay in that situation because you are reliant upon those situations. Right? I just want you all to think about that. Like, we're not taught to be afraid of things that we know are going to lose money, but we are taught to be afraid of things that are going to traditionally and historically make money. Right? It's a mindset thing that we have to unlearn because they don't want us to win. So that is how you set your child up to earn, and I said $1 million, right? In 40 years. We didn't even talk about 50. I mean, we talked about it, but I didn't put that in the post. 50 years, $2 million. And in 60 years, in 50 years, $1 million in 40 years, really $2.3 million. And then give another 10 years, you have $9 million. Crazy. I hope this has been super valuable for you guys. If you have not liked this video, make sure you like it. Make sure you comment on it. Leave a comment and subscribe to the Get Money Show. I'm going to post a link to my free Facebook group for those of you who do not have it. And those of you who are not in the group, I want you to join. We have this kind of conversation and topics all the time in there. And I'm going to post that link here for you, which I don't know where the link went because I just had it. But give me a second. I'll get it for you. And then also, if you're interested in My Rich Friends, like I just mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about insurance, using cash value insurance to grow wealth, all the sorts of things that the rich use that most of us have no interest or we don't know anything about. I want you to join that as well. And other than that, my Fix My Money Challenge is also coming up, and you can sign up for that as well at the link I'll post it. All right. Love you all so much. The link to the Facebook group is in the comments. The link to My Rich Friends is coming in the comments in just a minute. And all of that is in the description as well. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And thanks for rocking with me. And I appreciate you. I cannot wait to see you next week on the Get Money Show. All right. Here comes that link real quick. My Rich Friends. All right. Talk to you guys later. Have a wonderful and beautiful day. Mwah! Go out and get that money, y'all. Talk to you soon. Bye.